Hi, I'm Catherine, talking all things self-care, living life in the middle, and enjoying your busy world. And today I'm in conversation with Fiona, and I'll let Fiona introduce herself.
Thank you, Catherine. Hi, everyone. I'm Fiona and I own One Sanctuary, and it's all about self-care, mindfulness, and yeah, just being the best version of yourself.
And we thought we'd get together today because we both work with self-care in different ways. So we thought we'd explore how we both work with self-care and give you some wonderful tips and suggestions about how you can manage your busy life and feel the best that you can feel, trying to manage everything going on. So we thought we'd start with chatting about our own businesses and how we approach self-care, because we both do talk about self-care an awful lot, but we do it in quite different ways. So, Fiona, do you want to start with your world of self-care and how you approach it in supporting your clients and customers?
Yeah, of course. Just a little bit about how my business came about. So back just before COVID happened,
Mm.
um, my son actually suggested to me about setting up my own business. And at the time, we'd tried flotation therapy, which I don't know if you have heard of.
I've heard of it. I've never tried it.
Oh, it's
Sounds
wonderful.
wonderful.
So we'd had a few sessions of flotation therapy, and as a runner, it's really good for muscles and aches and pains,
Mm.
and but not just that. It's basically sense deprivation. So you go into a tank with water. Not full of water. You lie on the top of the water, and it's salt water, so it keeps you buoyant. And you basically float on the top of this water in a dark tank,
Mm.
completely silent. So it's basically sense deprivation,
Mhm.
and it's very good for relaxing and just any kind of aches and pains and muscles. It's very good for pregnant women as well. And so he suggested to me, why don't you look into setting up your own flotation therapy center? There's nothing like that around where we live. There wasn't at the time. So that's kind of where it all started, really. And I'm not going to go into all the details because I'm sure, as you could know, that in March 2020,
Oh,
uh, everything went into lockdown.
oh,
Um,
so
yeah,
timing
luckily,
wise was just
yeah,
a bit of a
yeah.
challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, so from December 19 to March 2020, in just those 3 months, I had managed to secure a premises. I had managed to secure a loan. I had an accountant. I had it. Basically, we were all ready to go.
Mm.
We just needed to sign on the dotted line. But luckily we didn't, because we were holding back because of everything that was happening. We could see what was going on around the world, and we were a little bit worried. So thank goodness we didn't sign, because I probably would have been bankrupt by now. But yeah, so to cut a very long story short, we realized that there was no way that this was going to happen anytime soon, and I had to come up with a business plan where I could work from home, that involved very little outlay, because I'd lost my job as well, and I came up with crystal jewelry. And you can see I'm wearing some. So I make crystal
Lovely.
jewelry. So I taught myself how to make like wire wrapped jewelry,
Mm.
and I love crystals. I've always loved crystals. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to incorporate like some kind of crystal into every bit of jewelry I make, and be like healing jewelry. So that was kind of how One Jewelry was born. But I realized I wanted to do a bit more than that. I wanted to promote self-care a little bit more. And I was very much into mindfulness as well, because before lockdown happened, I'd started meditating, and getting into mindfulness back then, because I had a horrendous job that I really didn't like. And it was my way of kind of coping. So yeah, it really helped me. And I wanted to kind of share my experience and help others realize that there's a different way that you can be. You don't have to be caught up in just what I call people going through life asleep, really. You know, it's like, let's wake up and let's be in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it all sort of stemmed from, really. And I then set up One Sanctuary, and I have a lovely Facebook group where I give like tips and advice and share some lovely quotes, and we can get conversations going, just to help people, really, you know, to help them in their day, stay mindful, self-care tips. And then I decided to launch some subscription boxes. So that's what I have, 2 subscription boxes now. One is very much based on crystals and mindfulness, and the other one is more self-care products. So it's just product based, and yeah, self-care, lovely products that you can use to help you with your current self-care routine, or to help you start one if you don't actually have one in place. And yeah, so that sort of with the crystals and the jewelry, and it just, yeah, it's just all about promoting that you are as important as anybody else around you, and, you know,
Yeah.
just to get people to realize that, you know, and help them not feel guilty, really. I think for me as well, that was one of the main things, was like, you know, I'd feel guilty if I took time for myself, and it's like, no,
Oh,
actually I am important as well. So yeah,
absolutely. Yes. And
it's
I
all
think
about.
that's such a common thing, isn't it? That we throw a bit of guilt in there
Mm-hmm.
of all the things we should be doing and must be doing and I need to get on with.
Absolutely, yeah. That stuff will still be there afterwards. It can wait. that's what I think now.
So patient. I always say I used to, it's a line that started when I was working in maternity, and I'd be talking to new mums about, you know, don't feel that you've got to get everything done and look after your new baby, because that is an absolute full-time job in its own right. And I used to always say things like, you know, a pile of ironing is so patient, because it doesn't matter how long you leave it, it will just sit there and wait for you. It won't go
Yep.
anywhere. It won't strop off in a huff or anything like that. It will just sit there waiting for you.
That's it.
So yeah, as you say, those things will just be there, won't they?
Yeah.
When you get round to them, when you do have time, or you make time for them, or an urgency comes along that actually means that you've just got to get on with it there and then.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what about you, Catherine? Tell us about you.
So my background, as I mentioned, I used to work in maternity. My background is nursing and midwifery, and I think it's from that an awful lot of my desire to the thing that I was connected with patients with, it was not just given the clinical care, but it was given the emotional support. So for a long time it's been a kind of a really important part of what I was doing on a daily basis anyway. And then I got to a point where I thought, actually I want to train in this properly. So for I'm just trying to think now, probably 13 years I think it is, I've been working in some form of therapy. I started off with hypnotherapy, and then I moved into counselling as well, and I've added other forms of therapy into my practice.
Mm.
But the key thing about self-care and where it relates is the thing that I hear time and time again from my clients is, you know, often when they come along to see me, they're really, really struggling. And the way I often describe it to clients is, you know, it's not even that you're at the bottom of your main tank. You've actually moved on to your reserve tank, and you're probably on the fumes of your reserve tank by the sound of it, because when people come and sit in the chair, they're just so overwhelmed with everything that's going on, often because of circumstances, because of busy lives that they're leading.
Mm.
So yes, we work through what they're struggling with as a specific sort of thing that they've got in touch with me for. But around that, I talk to every single client about self-care, because if we don't get the self-care right, trying to get everything else feeling better can just be, you know, it can just feel too overwhelming.
Yeah.
So it's not just about working through the difficulties or the problems that you're struggling with at that point. It's about actually getting you into a good place so you've got the strength and the energy to do it as well. So as I say, a lot of that is and it's quite interesting, because you were saying that you work through with the mindfulness and the meditation and that side of it. But you've also got the beautiful crystals, which, as we know, I'm no expert. I love crystals, but I know very little about them. I'm attracted to certain things, and I work on the principle that if I'm drawn to it, it must be for a good reason. But I've,
Absolutely,
I've
yeah.
got crystals in my house. I've no idea what they are, but they're really pretty. I really like them.
Yeah.
Um, so it's interesting because they complement each other, because you're working from that energy, aren't you, from the crystals.
Yeah.
I'm talking to my clients about other factors as well, of thinking about what can I do in my day that will be for me, that will help recharge my batteries. The way I always describe it to clients is, what ask yourself the question, what can I do to help me feel like me again? And
Yeah.
when I say that, the me again is the me when I'm in a good place, when I'm feeling on top of things, when I'm feeling content within myself, when I'm recognizing that things bring me joy.
Hmm.
And often we lose that when we're really struggling with things.
Yeah.
So I also see that as a starting point, because everybody's different. So
Absolutely.
for one, what will work for one person might not be the right thing for somebody else. So it's about you asking yourself that question. What can I
Yeah.
do for myself that will help me feel like me again today?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's definitely key. Like you say, one thing that works for someone isn't necessarily going to work
Yeah.
for somebody else. So it's about, yeah, connecting with yourself and finding out what, like you say, what makes you feel good and what makes you happy. Yeah, very important. Yeah. Yeah.
I suppose it's the same from your perspective with the crystals
Hmm.
and the jewelry.
Yeah.
Will help one person might not be the right thing to help somebody else, because they all have different healing powers, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it always fascinates me, like what you were saying about crystals that you're drawn to, and ones that I can look at and not feel any kind of particular, it's like, oh, it's a crystal, but I don't feel anything. And then other ones I'll just be like, oh my goodness, I have to like pick this up and I have to look at it, I have to find out all about it. And I think I have over 25 different crystals like in stock that I use to make jewelry. And some of them I've added to my range because I know they're popular crystals and I know people like those and buy those. But then others, I've just been drawn to them over sort of the course of a few weeks, and this crystal will keep popping up, and I think, oh, I'm going to find out about that, see what that is. And then when I research it and I read all about it, I'm like, I know exactly why I was drawn to that now. And
Yes.
I think one of the main ones was Unakite, which I think I have. Yeah, I have a bracelet on of Unakite, and I won't go into it now. But when I actually, it kept popping up, and when I was doing orders and this crystal, I was like, oh no, I don't want that one. I'm looking for other ones, but it just kept coming up, and I was like, right, I can't ignore this anymore. I'm going to find out all about it. And when I researched it and read all about it, I was like, oh, it was like a light bulb moment. I was like,
Mhm.
right, I have to get this crystal into stock and start using it. So yeah, it's fascinating. I could go on about crystals for ages, but we're not going to talk about that today.
But it's fascinating. And what I think, the thought that just came to me as you were saying that is, again, when I'm talking to clients about the things that they're struggling with, what we often do as human beings, because we're busy or we're not in the right space to deal with a problem, we push it down.
Mm-hmm.
And when we
Yeah,
push it down, the problem is it will keep finding ways to make itself heard. So it
absolutely.
sort of keeps knocking at the door and saying, I am still here.
Yeah,
We're too busy, we're not in the right space, so we push it down, and it keeps knocking and knocking. So
yeah.
the problem doesn't go away, it keeps re-emerging.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it might be at a time when it's really not convenient for us. But when it's getting to the point where it wants to be heard, it
Mm-hmm.
will really make itself known. But the thought that just occurred to me is actually the answer to the problem, the thing that will help you does exactly the same. And I think
Yeah,
sometimes when we're struggling, there will be sort of, the answers are there, but because we're not in the right space, we don't necessarily see or hear them. We're not aware of them. But the point is, because it was the right thing for you, it kept knocking at the door, didn't it? It
yeah,
kept making itself known until eventually you went, oh, let me just look it up and see where, now I know why I needed to
Yeah,
take
it
that.
has. It's happened with about 3 other crystals as well. And now when it happens, I'm like, okay, right, I don't leave it as long. I don't ignore it. I just go, right, okay, I'm gonna have a look and
Yeah,
like read all about
absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think, it is good to recognize that it's not just the problems that keep making themselves known. Actually, often the solutions or the things that will help us are
Mhm.
also keeping making themselves known. And it is that being open to recognizing them.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that we can do that is just by actually saying to ourselves, what I'm looking for is the solution to this problem.
Mhm.
Because then what we're doing is telling our subconscious mind
Yeah.
that this is what we need to do. And the way I talk about the subconscious is, I imagine it's like a little antenna that, it's always on the lookout for stuff. It sort of comes up from your head and it's constantly looking, constantly looking. And actually, when we say to the subconscious, I want to find the answer to this problem, it's out there doing the help for us. It's doing the work for us,
Yeah.
so that it will come into, it'll get caught in our filter. It will come into our conscious awareness, and we will be aware of things that can help us.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
there's a particular
Absolutely.
kind of self-care that you're looking for, or a particular thing that you think might help you to feel better, having that awareness and then taking note when things, as you say, kept making itself known. It
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it makes itself known to you, and then eventually you go, ah, that was there for a reason.
And I think this is where for me personally, I find meditation is fantastic because it allows you just to have some quiet time. And if there is anything like that that wants to come up or that you need to work on, that's the time when you're going to notice it. So yeah, even if you can just take 5 or 10 minutes, just to sit quietly, and these things, yeah, they might present themselves. Whereas if you're just running through your day in a busy kind of haze, like you say, you're just going to keep going, oh, I'm too busy, I'm ignoring it, and yeah, nothing will change. So this, again, it's why it's really important to take that time for yourself and yeah, find out what's going on inside and out.
It is. It is. And something that I'm certainly not perfect at myself, but I am very aware of, and again, it's something I talk about an awful lot, is we often look externally for answers.
Yeah.
And actually, if we ask the question and then wait for an answer, a lot of it can come internally as well. And the mindfulness is a lovely way of actually just letting the answers actually be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I know for me, like, especially all through my 20s, I was definitely one of those people that was searching for something on the outside to solve all my problems, to make me happy. And it's literally been since I've discovered mindfulness, meditation, I've realized that, do you know what, there's nothing out there that's gonna solve all my problems and make me happy. That's me, it's inside me, and it's, that's where that is. And it is hard, even when you practice mindfulness yourself, it's still, it is still hard. But I think, yeah, it's about recognizing that. And some people aren't ready to hear it, but that's fine. They get to a stage where they are ready, and everybody's different. So yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And we need to be ready. We need to be ready to listen and to respond, don't we? And if we're
Yeah.
not quite in the right place to hear it, then it can just sometimes take a little bit longer, and that's fine. That's
Yeah,
fine, because if we're not ready to listen and respond, we're not going to get the benefit from it anyway, because
that's
we're
it.
not quite in that right place.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. And talking of things that we're ready to hear, I think I'd love to share one of my favorite, I call it an inspirational story, that I heard
Yeah.
when I first started meditating. I actually heard it on the Calm app. Little plug
Okay.
there for the Calm app. I do love the Calm app, I have to say. It is so good. And yeah, if anybody wants to check it out, I would definitely recommend it. It's lovely. But I was listening to one of the meditations one day, and this story come up, and I think it's kind of classed as a an old Chinese fable or something like that. And you may have heard of it, but I'm gonna share it with you because I love it, and it really resonated with me, and it made me kind of go, oh my goodness, like that was me, you know. Like when I read it, you'll understand I was one of the villagers, like going around going, like so I'm going to read it to you so you understand what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So it's called Good Luck, Bad Luck, Who Knows. There was once an old farmer who worked hard for many years, and one day his horse broke free and it ran away. Upon hearing the news, his neighbours came running to the farm. Oh, such bad luck, they cried, cried sympathetically to him. Maybe, the farmer replied. The next morning, the horse returned with 3 wild horses. How wonderful, so lucky, all the neighbours cried as they came rushing to congratulate him. Maybe, the farmer replied. The following day, his son tried to ride one of the untamed horses, and he was thrown and he broke his leg. The neighbours again came rushing sympathetically. Oh, such bad luck, they cried to the farmer. Maybe, answered the farmer. The day after, military officials came to the village to draft young men into the army. Seeing the son's leg was broken, they passed him by. The neighbours congratulated the farmer on how well things had turned out. Maybe, said the farmer. So it doesn't continue after that. I'm not sure what maybe, but that's the end. And do you know what? When I heard that, I just thought, you know, that would have been me, like going around going, oh my goodness, well, bad luck, and oh, such good luck. And it's like, actually, we don't look at what that particular event might be leading to. We just see it for what it is. And in actual fact, something that looks like it could be really, really bad could actually turn out to be something good and positive. And I've had a lot of experiences like that in my life, which is why I think it resonated so much. And I remember particular events where something happened and I spent days or weeks worrying and feeling bad and feeling really down. And then something really good came of it. And I just thought to myself, do you know what? If I hadn't have wasted so much energy, like going, oh no, what's going to happen now? And just gone, do you know what? That's happened. There's nothing I can do. And just let it play out. Actually, something really good happened. And also you can look at it from the other point of view as well. You know, the villagers sort of crying, oh, great, good luck. And actually something bad happened from that good luck. So it's kind of telling us that, you know, we don't really know why these things are happening, and everything happens for a reason. And sometimes we just gotta go with it and let it ride and just wait, because better things might be around the corner. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you, and hopefully that kind of might resonate with some people as well. Like I say, I was fascinated by this story. I was just like, I don't want to be a villager. I want to be the farmer. I want to be that calm person that goes, do you know what? It's happened. There's nothing I can do. Let's just accept it and move on. And and I think, you know, this is obviously what mindfulness is going to teach us as well. So it's it's a lovely little story to help you with your mindfulness, hopefully. So.
It is, and there's a couple of things that really interested me, because I hadn't heard that story before.
Okay.
And a couple of things that really interested me, you know, the neighbours were swinging with their emotions, weren't they? Oh, it's the good luck, it's the bad luck. He was very much about what he can control and what he can't control.
That's
And
it,
actually
yeah.
accepting of the fact that, you know, the horse is gone. I can't control that. So let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
And at every stage, as the story progressed, it was very much, well, I don't have any control over that, so let's just see what happens.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
And I think, recognizing that, and recognizing that sometimes things happen in life and we don't have any control over them,
Yeah.
but it's about how we manage our emotions to get through them,
Yeah.
can be quite an empowering way of viewing it,
Mm-hmm.
rather
Exactly.
than, but you can understand how people do get drawn, because I do it myself.
Oh
We do
yeah.
get drawn in emotionally, don't we, particularly when it's something that's very personal.
Yeah.
But actually, to just have that thought in the back of your mind, I can't control this situation, but there will be other things that come from this that we do have more control over, or that we can sort of look at in a different way. And that was my other thought, is the constant reframing of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can see things as something that is lost, and we can see things as an opportunity. And it sometimes with life, it can be a real challenge to see an opportunity come out of something that's been quite hard to deal with.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
and when I talk about loss, I'm not including the loss of a loved one, or something
Yeah.
that's really, really meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
But we hear lots of inspiring stories for people who perhaps they've lost a job, and then
Yeah.
they've gone on to either open their own business or
Mm-hmm.
get another job, and that's actually worked really, really well for them. So coming from that sense of that sort of loss in the first instance, they turn it round and say, well, actually what we've now got is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was, almost, he didn't say that, but there were opportunities that came from it
Yeah.
because of his being open-minded in his mindset.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. That's, yeah, I think you explained it perfectly. That's brilliant. So yeah, yeah,
But it's a
definitely.
lovely story. It really is a lovely story.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, no, I do. I like I say, I just when I first heard it, I was like, wow, I was just, yeah, yeah, totally get it. Yeah, the whole thing, like I love how you said about the neighbours were getting swept away and along with their emotions, and that is, yeah, that's a perfect way to describe it, and that's exactly how I used to feel. Don't get me wrong, I do still. It's still hard, if something
well,
bad
it's
happens,
personal. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you still think, oh, but I think now I have the tools inside to deal with it a little bit easier, and not let it affect me for as long as it maybe would have done 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Mm.
Yeah, so but yeah, I mean, like I say, mindfulness has changed me, has changed my life, changed the way I see things, and
It's lovely to hear.
yeah, and this is why I want to share it with other people, because it's like, yeah, it's fascinating, and it's amazing. So
It is, it
yeah,
is. And I think it's important as well, again, when it comes back to self-care, we're at risk of beating ourselves up and say, oh, well, I shouldn't be so upset about it. I should be doing this, I should be doing that.
yeah,
And actually, when we think of it in terms of being kind to ourselves, you're allowed to feel emotional about it. I wouldn't for a moment suggest not feeling it. I can get very emotive about all sorts of things.
oh yeah,
Um,
me too.
Particularly being a woman of a certain age, the hormones can do strange things to the best of times. So it's not just about, oh well, I'll take a step back and I'll look at what I can control, or I'll reframe it, or whatever other sort of tool that you're thinking of using. I think that the important thing is that you acknowledge how you feel in the first place. And if it is
Yeah, yeah.
upsetting you, absolutely acknowledge that.
Hmm.
You're allowed to get grumpy if your horse has run away and you're reliant on that to get your farm working properly. You're allowed to be upset and quite angry or frustrated or whatever those emotions are. So allow them to happen. Acknowledge how you feel, but then take a moment and take a breath. And that's where your mindfulness and your meditation is coming in. Take a breath and think,
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
so
Yeah,
what can we do about this in a kind of what can we control, what can't we control? I can't control the fact the horse has run away because it's gone.
yeah,
Nothing I can do about that. What can I do going forward?
yeah,
What can I think about that? How can I see how can I be open to new things, new good things
yeah,
coming towards me, and new
yeah,
opportunities coming towards me? But acknowledge how you're feeling, because quite frankly, when it's your livelihood, you can understand why
yeah,
people do get very emotional, and
yeah,
that obviously
absolutely.
comes into every aspect of life.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
taking the breath, isn't it? That's where we allow the space to think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That just reminded me of a quote about that, but I can't remember exactly, so I'm not going to share it. I'll share that one next time.
Next time, write it down when you remember it.
I'll write it down. Yeah. You just reminded me of another one of my favorite quotes, and I'm just like, oh, I can't actually remember it exactly, but that's fine. So I thought it'd be nice as well if we just talk a little bit about our own self-care routines. I know for me, and you know, I'm not perfect. It's not it doesn't happen all the time. But I would say for me, my go-to self-care thing would be a bath. I love a bath. I always have. And I think like sometimes like years ago, I used to feel a bit guilty about going and like laying in the bath for half an hour, but I don't anymore. I'm just like, no, do you know what? Yeah. That's for me. I take a book in there, normally a cup of fruity tea or something like that. And I just no, do you know what? Shut the door and it's a half hour to myself. And yeah. So that's kind of like my go-to pamper thing. But also I've mentioned about the meditation as well, and yoga again is something that I love to do. Personally, I'd like to do more than I do. I need to find more time to do it. And I actually don't. I do it myself at home. I follow it along to YouTube videos. And so even if you think, oh, I haven't got time to go out to a yoga class, or even I can't afford to go to a yoga class, stick YouTube on. I would highly recommend Yoga with Adriene. She's lovely. And her videos are they're so easy to follow. I think she's been on there now she's got about 10 years worth of content on her channel. So there is something on there for everyone. Yeah. Sorry, lots of choice. Yeah, absolutely. And every new year she always does a 30-day challenge. So, and I did it this year. I actually managed to do it, and when I finished, I was only 1 day out. So I was well pleased with myself. I managed to do that. But
very good going.
Since the end of January, I haven't kind of kept it up as much as I'd like to. But I felt so much better during January. It really helped, especially like PMT symptoms as well. I didn't even have any that month, whereas normally I would. So it's, I mean, if you've been thinking about yoga and think that it's something you might want to do, then I would definitely recommend it. But so that's kind of my few things that I like to do for me. And I mentioned as well, I'm a runner as well, so I do a lot of running. But even though it is something for me, it's not. I suppose it can be relaxing sometimes, but it's but it's still, again, it's still something. It's a hobby. It's my hobby. So don't disclude hobbies as self-care as well, because that can totally be thrown in there as well. So and what about for you? What are you what do you do?
Well, I'm absolutely the soaky bath is very much, so I'm absolutely with you on that one. The soaky bath is very much for me. But I was going to ask you, do you have a specific time of day that works for you best? Or are you quite a random, when
I can be quite random. I can, yeah. Do you know, a couple of weeks ago, I just randomly had a bath in the middle of the day, and I was like, one of the perks of being self-employed, I suppose.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But no, I would say normally after my daughter's gone to bed, I would, like, she's only 5, so still have bedtime routine and stories, and she likes me to sit in her room till she falls asleep, which is fine. And then so normally after she's asleep, I would then I have some time to myself, and
The reason that I ask is because my treat for, during the week, it's very much get up, dive in the shower, get on with the day type thing. But I like on Sunday morning, if we haven't got anything planned, that's when I like to go and lie in the bath. And like you, I like a book. I like an audio book. Partly because I'm really quite short-sighted, so I have to have my glasses on in the bath, and actually what I quite like, particularly if it's warm and they steam up or whatever, so it's quite nice to just take my glasses off and listen to an audio book. But one of the things that I have found, and I didn't set out to do this intentionally, but I've noticed, is because I've been doing this for a number of years now, there is an expectation within the household that, oh yeah, Sunday morning, mum likes to lie in the bath. I make a nice coffee. So the same principle, but I have coffee, I have my audio book, have my bubbles up to here, and that is my time. And actually part of self-care is, it's not just about what you do for you, but particularly if you're in the middle of a busy family,
Yeah.
it's quite nice when others actually have an expectation that that's what you'll be doing, because then it's not oh, can you do this and can you do that? It's, oh, are you going to be enjoying your Sunday morning bath this week? And yeah, absolutely, we haven't got
Yeah.
anything on, so that's my time. So part of your self-care is also making it routine for you, but it's actually a really good positive message to others
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
this is what happens. This is my self-care. This is what keeps me going for the week. They expect you to be
Yeah.
doing that.
And I think
Setting a
that's
good example as well.
yeah, I think that's a really important point that you've hit on there as well. It's especially if you do live in a busy household, is talk to your family,
Mm.
and I always say to people, just tell others what you want to do, and you're allowed. And the whole thing with the expectation, I think a lot of us, we kind of put upon ourselves like, oh, everybody expects me to be cooking the dinner. Everybody expects me to be washing up. Everybody expects me to be cleaning the house. And it's like, well, yes, okay, you're allowed to do those things. You can do those things, but put some nice things in there as well. Like you say, like, oh, why can't you then say, oh, everybody expects me to be having my bath right now and looking
Yeah,
after myself? That's
absolutely.
perfectly acceptable to do that.
Exactly. And
Um,
if you can create that expectation
yeah,
when you're planning things, it's not written in stone. If we want to have a day out, then that absolutely happens. Sometimes you have
yeah,
things on, you have your own commitments.
yeah.
But managing that expectation of others
Mm-hmm.
means that if they want you to do something, they're not even going to bother asking you to do it at that time, because they're
Absolutely.
actually expecting you to be busy doing something else, and they
Yeah,
recognize that the value of that for you. So
yeah,
part of self-care is actually just it's not just the routine for yourself, but I think
mm,
it can be really helpful to, not that you've got to do the same thing every week at the same
no,
time,
absolutely.
but that expectation that you will do things in
Mm,
your week for
yeah,
you as a busy partner, mum, even when you're on your own, managing the expectations of customers, clients, colleagues, whoever it is. When we
mm,
manage those expectations, we help to manage a huge amount of pressure and reduce
absolutely.
the pressure on ourselves,
Yeah,
because we're being realistic about other people's expectations of what we can deliver.
mm,
But coming back to self-care, that's just something that, as I say, it was something that I noticed. It wasn't something I ever set out to do. I want you all to expect me to be in the bath on Sunday morning. um, Never set out with that intention, but I've noticed as time's gone by,
yeah,
there is that, oh, you'll be in the bath on Sunday
mm,
morning. So,
mhm,
can we do such and such in the afternoon? Are you able to sew a button on, or, whatever it is?
yeah,
Their expectation is that I'm
yeah,
not available
yeah,
because I'm doing something for me. And
yeah,
actually, that's just quite a nice
yeah,
natural involvement of how things
absolutely.
have panned out. So
Yeah,
yeah, certainly is something that is. There are other things that I do routinely, but that is definitely one that I really look forward to, because
yeah,
I know I don't need to clock watch, and I don't need to
mhm,
be anywhere.
yeah,
It's just a really nice thing to be able to do. And if you're worried about, yes, but I do, I work shifts, I do different things, sometimes I'm available, sometimes
mm,
I'm not. Routine doesn't have to be same time, same place every single week. It
mm,
can be on my day off,
yeah,
or,
mhm,
you know, uh, I like to get it done. So some weeks it'll happen this day, some weeks it'll happen that day. It depends what I'm doing. Routine can just be that it happens. It doesn't have to be set in stone, same time every single week.
yeah, yeah. Because I think sometimes as well, if you do try and set it in stone every like week, that
Yeah.
can then add a pressure to yourself, and then it becomes like,
Oh,
do you know what? I'm
absolutely.
not even enjoying this anymore. So you don't want that to happen, obviously. So
I'm doing it because I'm ticking a box, and that's not what
yeah,
self-care is
that's not
about.
what it's about. Yeah.
Self-care should be embraced
Hmm.
and enjoyed. You should come out of self-care, even if it's something like putting yourself through something that is less pleasant. You should come away from it feeling, I can feel a benefit in some way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Because sometimes self-care is a bit more, we're doing things that we don't necessarily want to do, you know,
Mhm.
that they don't bring us joy in the same way, but actually we know that they help us in some way, so we
Yeah,
are getting a benefit from it.
absolutely.
If you're not getting the benefit, we need to just readjust, we need to review, we need to go,
Mhm.
right, what do we need to do now,
Yeah,
because that's
yeah,
not serving me like it used to, so what do I need to change it to?
yeah. And again, that's where the awareness and the mindfulness comes in. So it all goes hand in hand, doesn't it? It's lovely.
Absolutely does.
Okay.
So it's been really lovely exploring all those different aspects.
Yeah.
So I think just to round off, shall we share, you know, a suggestion each of self-care tips that we think people might find really useful and beneficial?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea. Yeah. Do you want me to go first? Shall I go?
Absolutely, yeah, go for it.
So I'm always talking about sleep. And I would say that sleep is the place to start. If you already have a great sleep routine, then fantastic. But if you are struggling, I mean, we all struggle with sleep. The last couple of nights, I've had terrible night's sleep, but it's because I suffer with my neck, and I've had a bad neck the last few nights, so it's been waking me up. Um, but I always say, try and get a really good bedtime routine established. And this is going to look different for everybody. So, I really couldn't sort of say, right, do this, do that, because what would work for one person wouldn't work for somebody else. So there's some different things that you can try to incorporate, things you can change, and just really have a play and an experiment and see what works for you. But one of the main things that I say to people, that if they are struggling, especially to fall asleep, is to look at what they're doing sort of half an hour before they go to bed. And a lot of the time, most people are on some kind of gadget, whether it's a phone, whether it's a tablet, laptop, even the TV. So I think sometimes you might think, oh, but I watch the TV in the evening to relax. That's my relaxing time. And it's like, that's fine. That's, I'm not telling you to stop doing that, but maybe turn it off half an hour earlier than normal. And just, yeah, either read a book or just have some quiet time. Meditation is great. And just have a little bit of time before you try and go to sleep, where you're not, in front of a screen, because the light can affect your sleep, basically. And there's other things as well you can do. You can try having sort of a like chamomile tea or something like that. Although if you tend to wake up during the night needing a wee, I wouldn't recommend having a cup of tea before you go to bed.
A
A
little bit sooner.
little bit earlier, yeah. Maybe while you've still got the telly on. But um and things like, make sure you've not eaten a big meal sort of, couple of hours before bed. But also don't go to bed feeling hungry, because that can make you that can affect your sleep as well. So it's about getting the balance right, and like I say, it's going to be different for everybody. But yeah, it just, if you aren't sleeping properly and you haven't had enough sleep and rest, then the rest of your day is going to be a struggle. Everything that you try and do the next day is going to be harder than if you'd had a really good night's sleep. So yeah, just try some of those things, even if you think, no, I don't want to turn the TV off, or no, I'm talking to my friends on Facebook, that's my social time. Just try it and see if it helps. Just see if it helps.
Absolutely. And sleep is so essential to every single thing we do. It's even essential for things like weight loss and things like that, because if we're not getting the restful sleep, we
Yeah,
often, when we're tired, we end up snacking on sugary foods, things
make
like
the wrong
that.
decisions.
So it is just part of every part of life, whether it's being focused for work, whether it's functioning well during the day, feeling well rested, actually renewing everything from both physiologically as well as sort of emotionally, and just it just enters every single aspect of our lives. So absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good. So yeah, so what about you? What's your
Well,
tip?
I was thinking about this, and part of it is inspired about plans I've got for later today. But having a coffee with a friend,
Ah,
And when I say that, immediately we think about, taking time out of our day and arranging to meet people physically, actually sitting down, and whether it's in your own home or whether it's in a coffee shop or somewhere. But actually, I'd also, suggest that if you've got friends who live further away, plan a time into your day as well, and actually, have some sort of video chat as well,
yeah,
because it works in so many ways. It's taken time out to actually spend time with other people.
yeah,
It gives us a chance to talk about all sorts of things that we would never talk about. What we often tend to do with people in our lives is we resort to a quick text or a quick message in some way. But in a conversation, we can talk about so much more.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's the human interaction. It's when I'm talking to you and I can see you're listening, I can see you're responding.
yeah.
We've all done it where you send a message, or in my case, when you receive a message and you're convinced that you've replied to it, and then you go and look and realize that I've done it where I just literally I've typed it and I haven't hit the haven't hit
Hit
the
the send
send
button.
button.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's still sitting there on my phone, and it's not been received by the person I wanted to share something with.
yeah,
So we sometimes wonder, oh, did they get it? Did they read it?
yeah,
Perhaps, what was their reaction at the time? Even if it was something funny, just kind of a one-off remark type thing. So I think that human connection of taking time out of your day, if you can do it in the flesh, if you can get together physically, that's brilliant. If you can go
yeah.
and have a coffee with a friend somewhere, have a really good catch up. It doesn't have to be a deep and meaningful. It can be about absolutely anything.
Mhm.
But if you can't, actually plan it. There are so many platforms that you can have a video chat with.
Yeah.
So put time in the diary and arrange to meet up with people. And I think the one thing I found through the pandemic, because we were forcibly um, sort of not being able to uh, catch up with people in the flesh,
Mm.
it actually made me realise that I've got friends around the country that I could just set up a Zoom call and
Yeah.
just continue to do that, even though we could get together because they're further away, they're 100, 200 miles away. Actually, it's so nice to be able to just say, let's have sometimes we have a girls' night in, and, 7:30 on a Saturday night, we're all sat there in front of our computers. But
That's
years
brilliant.
gone by, it would have been a once in a year time of
Yeah,
catching
yeah.
up, whereas now we do it 3, 4, 5 times a year
Oh, that's
because we
brilliant.
put the effort in because we can, and it's so easy.
Yeah.
So make time to catch up with people you care about rather than just being reliant on quick messages, because with the message, you don't get the same interaction that you do when you're talking to somebody face to face, even if it's online.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like you say, it's all about the body language and yeah, just that human interaction. We are social creatures, we need that. And I know sometimes, sometimes I feel like just locking myself away and not talking to anybody. And I think again, this is another thing that the pandemic kind of made me personally realize was how much I did need to be around other people. And yeah, and like you say, one good thing that's come out of it is the way we use Zoom, and there are other platforms out there. And like you say, we can catch up with people even on the other side of the world. And before the pandemic, I don't think, well, not many people would have thought of doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's changed how we can interact with each other, and it's lovely. So yeah, no, that's really good tip. I always feel much better when I've had a chat with somebody else, and yeah.
And that actually brings me back to your farmer,
Oh.
because well, it just occurred to me. The pandemic was like the horse running away. And actually, what it's brought is connection, because we learned how to
Yeah,
communicate in different ways.
yeah,
And it's a good reminder that just because we're not now locked in our homes as we were before, it doesn't mean to say we can't keep utilizing what we learned from that.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it was one of the benefits that came out of it. I've certainly had far more non-work related Zoom calls with family and
Oh,
friends
yeah,
through the
yeah.
pandemic and since then it never occurred to me before then to try
No.
and do it. And I don't know why it didn't. It was being forced into it. We've
Yeah,
kept it going. So they a little bit of reframing on that.
yeah.
So yeah, bringing it back to your farmer.
That's it. Yeah, I like that. And actually, like when I talked to my mum before the pandemic, we always just used to do, a normal phone call. But now, even now, we talk to each other on WhatsApp video, and that's the normal thing to do now. And actually, it was funny. It made me laugh. The other day, I phoned her just normally, and she answered the phone. She was like, "Oh," she went, "Is this it's not a video call. And I was like, oh no, I just phoned you normally. So it's now become normal to do the face-to-face video call rather than just a phone call. So yeah.
And how much nicer is it to do
Yeah,
that?
it's nice. Yeah, it's lovely. It's much nicer. Yeah. So, well,
Well, we've had a good old chat and
we
discussion
have.
on all things self-care, and we will certainly be continuing these videos and looking at other aspects of self-care and how we can open up our
Absolutely.
minds to what self-care is, and bring more self-care and looking after ourselves into our lives in a really natural, authentic way.
Absolutely, yes. So hopefully we will have lots of lovely tips and information for everyone, and that we can share, and that people can benefit from. And hopefully they will continue to listen.
And I'll certainly, for the YouTube video, I'll include links of Fiona's website for my YouTube channel as well. So I'll pop them all in the
Lovely.
description box below.
Yeah, I'll do the same as well for you from on my channel as well. So yeah, so we'll upload these. I'll put this into the group as well. Well, I'll put the link to YouTube into the group, so people can from there can watch it as well. So that'd be nice. Yeah.
Well, it's been lovely chatting to you, and
Yes, it
we
has.
will chat again soon.
We will do. All right. Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.